I make the man a star, and this is how he repays me, with insubordination?
So, why don't you knock him down a peg and put him back in the sound and light booth?
Believe me, I'd like nothing better than to kick him out of here. Unfortunately, I have to be realistic. He happens to be the #1 attraction of the Unicorn.
Money talks, huh?
And who would know that better than you?
Don't be nasty, darling.
Well, if you change your mind and promise to come over here, I promise to say nothing but sweet words.
Eliot, I can't. Not only do I not have a babysitter, but I would just like to wash my hair and go to bed tonight.
Well, I was feeling kind of tired, and I thought I'd turn in early myself.
Forget it, Eliot. I told you I do not like carrying on in Jamie's presence. It makes me feel very uncomfortable.
You've been telling me a lot of not very nice things lately.
If you'll just wait until after the custody trial, we will be inseparable. Please, just be patient.
Patience is not one of my virtues, Raven.
Well, I'm sorry. One other thing. Please don't call me back tonight. I just put Jamie to sleep and the phone will wake him up. I'll talk to you tomorrow, okay? Bye-bye.
Scott Residence?
Yes, hello, Molly. Is that you?
Yes, who's this, please?
This is Raven.
Oh, Mrs. Swift. Just a minute, I'll get Mrs. Scott.
No, wait. I want to speak to you.
Me? Well, what can I do for you?
Molly, you could be my lifesaver tonight. Could you come over and babysit for me if the Scotts aren't going out?
I think you better talk to Mrs. Scott. Mrs. Scott, would you take this, please?
What is it, Raven?
Hi, April. The lawyer that's taking care of my mother's estate called, and he wants to meet with me tonight. It's an emergency.
So?
Well, I've tried every babysitter I have, and I can't get a hold of one of them.
Well, ask the lawyer to come over to your place.
Well, I thought of that, but he's not in his office, and I don't know where to reach him, so I thought that perhaps Molly could come over for a few hours. You know, she took such good care of Jamie.
I'd really rather not do that.
Why not? Well, you and Draper are certainly competent parents. You could take care of her for a little while, couldn't you?
Yes, I'm quite capable of taking care of my own daughter, so is Draper.
Well, will you do this for me, please? It would mean so much to me.
Raven, it is not right for me to ask Molly to put down whatever she's doing and run over and take care of somebody else's child.
Excuse me, Mrs. Scott, but I wouldn't mind helping out.
Are you really sure?
Well, I wouldn't do it for Mrs. Swift, but for Jamie's sake, I'll bet he needs a nice hot bath.
All right, Raven, Molly will be over shortly.
April, I love you. Someday I will repay your kindness.
The kindness isn't for you, Raven. It's for Jamie. Bye.
Well, thank you. Bye.
Who is it?
Raven.
Raven! Hello. This is a surprise.
Hi. I hope I didn't catch you at a bad time.
No, not at all.
I'm sorry to just barge in like this, but I have to talk to you.
Well, I'm glad to see you. Can I get you something to drink?
No, thanks. Oh, I've missed you. It seems like it's been so long.
Well, I guess that's been my fault. I've meant to call you up. I wanted to, but I've been a little hesitant.
Why?
I didn't know how you'd react. I know you're still in mourning. I thought it might be too soon to call.
You're so considerate. However, I have a problem, Mr. Chief of Police, and it concerns you and your detectives. Do you know that Deborah Saxon is determined to spread some sort of rumor that I was responsible for my mother's accident?
Now, wait a minute. Have we got our signals crossed?
I thought I told you to call her off. Why didn't you?
Deborah is just conducting a routine investigation into your mother's accident. It's not intended to be directed against anybody. Now, come on, you know as well as I do there were some unusual aspects surrounding her death. I think you'd want these questions answered.
My mother is gone. All I want to do is adjust and try to lead a normal life. She is preventing me from doing that.
Look, you're blowing this way out of proportion.
She is out to get me, Derek. Can't you see that?
You're upset. You've been under a lot of stress, and that's why you feel this way.
I'm scared.
Raven, nobody has and nobody will be accusing you of anything.
Don't you see, Derek, I don't need a formal accusation to ruin my life. All I need is the hint of a scandal, and everything will be over with.
What'll be over with?
The custody trial is going to start. All I need is to have some sort of vicious rumor wafting into the courtroom.
No, Deborah would never pull a stunt like that. She's got no reason to.
Well, you have a lot more faith in her than I do.
Everything's going to be all right, believe me.
I'm sorry, Derek, but I just can't take your word for it.
What else can I do?
I want you to call her into your office and talk to her. I want you to tell her to forget I ever existed.
That won't be necessary.
Derek. Oh, baby. Please. Please do this for me.
Come on, this is ridiculous. Take me home.
No.
Look, if you're worried about being recognized at your place, you can come up to mine.
They'll just recognize me at your place.
No, listen, we'll disguise you as this cleaning lady and we smuggle you up. How's that?
Elliot, you'll just make me clean your apartment.
Oh, come on, Raven. Damn it, we haven't been alone for a week.
Can't you understand? I have to be very careful. It is 10 times more important that I win this custody trial. I can't take a risk.
So you've got that case won, and you know it.
I do not know it. Now, come on. I won't know it until the judge gives a decision. Now, hey, it'll only be a few days. Come on, just get a hold of yourself.
Now, listen, this trial can last forever.
No. It's just going to last a few days. It's not like a criminal trial. Now, there's only 3 witnesses. Me and Logan. And Logan's little sweetie, April. She is the only one that can cause trouble for me. And she is going to regret she ever took that stand.
What do you intend doing?
Oh, just going to make her look like a fool. But I really do have to go. I have to let my babysitter leave.
Tell me one thing, Raven. Do you use the same excuse on Mallory?
And what about Derek?
I mean, do you use the custody trial as an excuse, too, when he wants to see you?
I don't see Derek, Mallory. You know that. So why should I make an excuse?
Oh, that's strange. Since Charlie saw you coming out of his apartment house the other night.
All right, but I had a reason. It wasn't anything personal.
Well.
Look, I went to see Derek because I was worried about Deborah Saxon. She's trying to make it look like I was responsible for my mother's accident.
And exactly what did you do to make Mallory call off the dogs?
Elliot, I didn't do anything. I just told him I thought it was ridiculous, her running around spreading lies. Now, I told you. She called my mother's lawyer in London to find out about the will. She's trying to make it look like I had some sort of motive for wanting Mother dead.
And of course you didn't.
I never wanted my mother dead.
Even though she was about to alter the will? To make sure that Jamie doesn't get a cent before he's 21 years old?
You're worse than she is.
Now listen, cut this out. You're changing the subject now. Tell me exactly what you did with Mallory on that visit. What was it you used on him?
Will you stop it?
Give me all the juicy details.
He never touched me. All we did was talk.
Raven, remember what I told you? If you as much as went near another man, that letter will go straight to your husband.
I didn't do anything, I swear it on my mother's grave.
That's a good one. Your mother was cremated at your instruction. She hasn't got a grave. Yes, laugh. I got a good one for you. See if you find this funny. Charlie didn't see you.
What?
Yes, I was lying. I was trying to get a reaction out of you. And I got one, didn't I? Ah, don't you dare. Come here.
You
Here.
Stop it, Elliot.
I want you now. I'm going to take you now. You understand me?
So you're not going to do anything nasty now, are you?
No, I wouldn't dream of spoiling a little game now, darling. Especially since you've dealt me a hand.
Oh, you mean the $10,000 I promised you. I said you get that if I get the letter before the trial.
Oh, those measly 10,000? That'll be peanuts when your mother's millions wing their way across the Atlantic into Jamie's bank account.
Well, that's true, but I thought we could both enjoy it.
You and Jamie?
No, you and I. That's what I always intended.
Swear it. On your mother's grave.
Elliot, you don't trust me, do you? The reason I'm faithful to you is not just the letter. It's because you are the sexiest, most handsome man I've ever met in my life.
You know your problem, Raven?
What?
You find most men irresistible. You find them handsome, you find them sexy. Especially those that find you resistible.
I wish you'd be a little less resistible. It's so unlike you, darling. Come on. Give me that letter.
In a word, no.
Why not? You said you're not going to use it against me. Why can't you just give it to me?
I enjoy owning it. Makes me feel secure.
Makes me feel very insecure.
Exactly.
You just want to see me suffer, don't you? You get your kicks that way.
Oh, no, Raven. I want there to be one thing in your life that you're not sure of. One thing that you don't get your way with. And that letter provides it.
Eliot, I'll let you come home with me if you give me the letter.
I can't be bought that easily, darling.
All right. Stay here, then. You can drool over your little waitresses. He's all yours, honey. So it's going to be a very, very big day for us today, Jamie. You know why? You know what's going to happen? I'm going to go to the big place downtown called the courtroom, and I'm going to tell the judge how much I love my little baby. And then I'm going to be able to keep you forever and ever and ever. And you know what? We're going to have a good time together. Because we're going to have plenty of money in our joint bank account. And you know what else? You know what else? You have such cute little hands. Look at those little hands. But you know what? They're too small to write a check. So you'll have to let your mommy write them for you. That must be your new babysitter. Her name is Mrs. Twilly.
Good morning, my lovely.
What are you doing here?
Oh, I came to accompany you to the courthouse in your day of triumph.
I do not want your company, Eliot. I don't want you anywhere near me today.
Now, is that nice? To someone who got out of bed early just to see you?
Well, why don't you just turn around and go back to bed?
My bed has been very cold and empty lately, darling. You've been neglecting me shamefully. Ah, what matter? To show that there are no hard feelings, I brought you a little present.
You did?
Yes, just a small token of my affection and esteem.
Eliot, you brought me the letter. Oh, you wonderful man. I love you. Give it to me.
No.
Oh, Eliot, we'll celebrate tonight. We will. Your bed will not be cold and empty for long. Now, come on, give it to me. A flower?
Not just a flower, Raven. A perfect rose.
This is what I think of you and your perfect rose. I want that letter, Eliot.
I'm sure you'd like to do exactly the same thing to that infamous letter of yours than you did to my perfect rose.
No, I would like to do the same thing to you. I would like to just tear you up and throw you away.
I can't see why you're so worried. You're practically home free. How long can that trial possibly last?
I don't know. A few days, I suppose.
There you are. A few days from now, this letter won't mean a thing. You have custody of Jamie. You'll have custody of Jamie's millions. A happy ending if ever I saw one.
You just make me so nervous. You have that stupid thing.
Ah, it's just a souvenir.
It is not. It's blackmail, and you know it. Don't you understand that letter means everything to me, especially now, since they're going to call April in the stand?
So what? It's her word against yours. And without that letter... Hello, Jamie.
Eliot, what I don't understand is why are you doing this? Don't you understand? If I get custody of Jamie, it benefits you as well as me.
Oh, I can see that.
Just think of the fun that we could have as soon as that money comes into my hands.
Where will you be then? Monticello or London?
What do you mean?
Or maybe Paris? Or Rio? South of France? No. I think London. Because you would want to see if your stepfather is really as crazy as they say about that actress. Or if he's still in love with you. You would just make the biggest mistake of your life, Raven. You slapped the man who has your letter.
You make me so angry. Don't you understand? I have absolutely no interest in Ansel Scott.
You didn't have. But that was before you found out about that actress. It's competition that arouses you, darling.
I have not looked at another man since the day I met you.
You're such a blatant little liar. The truth is, if I hadn't had that letter, you would have been running after every pair of trousers in Monticello.
Eliot!
Don't. You'll rumple that nice, neat suit of yours. You'd want to look respectable for the judge.
Eliot, don't go away mad.
Just go away.
Must be my babysitter.
Allow me.
Mrs. Twilling?
Why, yes. And you are Mrs. Swift?
Right. Please come in. Jamie's been dying to meet you.
Oh, thank you. Oh, isn't he a handsome little boy?
Look, I'll see you tonight.
We'll see each other before then, darling, at the courthouse.
Please, Eliot, don't go to the courtroom.
It's a public hearing, darling.
Mrs. Swift, your little boy is really precious.
Yes. I know.
Your counselors, I believe that neither of you has appeared before me in a domestic hearing and that neither of you has been involved in a custody action before. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. Your Honor, I've acted in several divorce actions, but not in any contested custody case.
Oh, all right. I just wanted to make a brief statement about the manner in which I expect this matter to be handled by counsel as well as by your witnesses. Now, this will be a trial in every sense of the word in which we respect the rules of evidence. I will not ask a counsel to make an opening statement, and I will reserve the right to question any and all of the witnesses directly. Is that understood?
Yes, sir. Yes, Your Honor.
Now, the question of which parent should be entitled to the custody and sole control of the child is, as you know, a sensitive and highly emotional question. And the court's decision will be based solely upon what we perceive to be the welfare and the best interests of the child. The desires of the parents, even of the child himself, will have to yield to the judgment of the court.
Your Honor, the child in this case is just an infant, and we feel he should not really be brought into court.
Yeah, Mr. Nelson, the court is aware of the age of the child, and I hope that you and your client are aware that the burden of proof will rest upon you, since it is common court policy to award custody to the mother, unless it can be clearly demonstrated that she is unfit or incapable of caring for him properly.
Well, Your Honor, we feel that we will clearly demonstrate that she is indeed unfit.
Mr. Nelson, I ask that there be no preliminary statements.
Yes, Your Honor.
Now, since both sides have petitioned for custody, I will let the choice of precedence be up to you.
We flipped a coin, Your Honor. Mrs. Swift will present her case for custody first.
Very well, then. You may call your first witness, counsel.
We call Mrs. Benita Thomas.
Mrs. Benita Thomas, please take the stand. Place your left hand on the Bible and raise your right hand. You solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
State your name.
Mrs. Benita Thomas.
Be seated.
Mrs. Thomas, what is your employment?
I'm director of the Medford Foundation.
What is that exactly?
It's a non-profit institution dedicated to public welfare, particularly the welfare of children. We're mostly engaged in research studies and advisory functions.
Mm-hmm. And what did you do prior to becoming director of this foundation?
I was employed by the Monticello Department of Public Welfare.
You were an investigator?
That's correct.
How many years were you employed in this job?
About 12 years. My last job was department manager.
So, Mrs. Thomas, you are obviously very experienced in this field, are you not?
Mrs. Thomas is very well known to the court. You may proceed with the testimony.
Certainly, Your Honor. Mrs. Thomas, were you ever in the home of Mrs. Raven Swift and her son Jameson Swift?
Yes, I was.
On what date?
August the 1st.
Did Mrs. Swift know that you were coming?
No, she did not.
It was a total surprise visit then?
Well, it should never be a complete surprise. Would-be adoptive parents and parents with custody disagreements should realize that their circumstances could be investigated. However, we do like to keep the date of the actual visit open.
Simply because you don't want any artificial preparation for your visit.
Well, we do want to observe the situation on a normal basis, yes.
So, when you called at the home of Mrs. Raven Swift, unexpectedly, what did you find?
Generally, the home conditions of the child seem satisfactory.
Just satisfactory, Mrs. Thomas, or very satisfactory?
Well, I'd say quite satisfactory. However, it's really based on external impressions.
The child seemed healthy, well taken care of?
Yes, he did.
What sort of physical surroundings had been arranged for him?
Well, he was in a very attractive nursery. It seemed to be completely equipped, and he had an extensive wardrobe.
What sort of arrangements had been made for the child's care? I mean, other than the normal care a mother generally gives her child, was there a baby nurse?
Yes, there was.
Were you familiar with this particular nurse?
I knew her by reputation.
Was it a good reputation?
Your Honor, we feel that it's irrelevant to get into debate as to whether a mother can take care of her child better than a hired nurse.
Nevertheless, I will allow the latitude, Mr. Nelson.
Yes, Your Honor.
Mrs. Thomas, in your objective report to this court, isn't it true that you saw no reason in the world why Raven Swift should not retain custody of her child?
I made no recommendation for custody. I simply stated that I was aware of no home conditions that would be against the best interest of this child.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
The counsel, you wish to cross-examine?
Yes, sir. Miss Thomas, I have your report here. Admittedly, I'm not familiar with the child custody battles, but I am familiar with legalistic language, and seems to me to be very short. How many times did you visit Mrs. Swift?
Once.
Just once? Is it common to make decisions based on just one visit?
No, not ordinarily. We usually make 2, 3 visits, but I was very busy at the foundation at the time, and...
So then you made your judgment on the care of Jamie Swift based on only one visit. You said that Mrs. Swift was not expecting you, but were you aware that she was expecting someone else?
I don't know what you mean.
Well, you didn't know that all the Mother Goose wallpaper and the baby furniture and the extensive wardrobe you mentioned, plus the hired nurse herself, were merely for the benefit of impressing Nadine Scott, Raven's mother, who was on her way from London.
Objection, Your Honor, this is entirely irrelevant. Totally.
Yes, I'll sustain.
Oh, I thought that Mrs. Thomas knew. I'm sorry. I have no further questions.
Very well, then, you may step down, Mrs. Thomas. Mr. Rutledge, you may call your next witness.
Yes, Your Honor, thank you. I wish now to call Mrs. Raven Swift.
Mrs. Raven Swift, please take the stand. Place your left hand on the Bible and raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
State your name.
Raven Swift.
Be seated.
So then, Mrs. Swift, you and your husband have actually been separated for almost a year.
Yes, we have a separation agreement with a divorce action pending.
Mrs. Swift, do you bear any particular rancor toward your husband?
No, it was just one of those marriages that didn't work. My husband was very busy. He's the district attorney of Monticello, and he was running for office when we were first married, so of course he didn't have the time to devote to his
Your
family.
Honor, this is a custody hearing, not a divorce trial.
Yes, Mr. Rutledge, please confine your questions to the subject of the child.
Certainly. Mrs. Swift, isn't it true that you left the United States about 10 months ago, just after the separation from your husband?
Yes, that's true.
And is it true also that you did not take the baby with you?
No, I was very distraught at the time, and I wanted to visit my mother. I needed to talk to her about what had happened.
And she lived in London?
Yes, she lived in London with her husband. I felt it would be very unfair of me to take my baby with me because Jamie was only 6 months old at the time, and to put him through all that travel and change of environment. I just didn't think that was right. So I called some friends of mine and asked them to take care of him for a little while.
Who are these friends?
April and Draper Scott.
Now, Mrs. Swift, when you returned from London to Monticello, what did you find?
I found that my baby was no longer in the Scott household. They had turned him over to my husband.
Turned him over? Why did they do that?
I guess Logan asked them for him, and since Mr. Scott was Logan's best friend, he did as he was asked.
You left no instructions that they were to do this?
No, absolutely not. I assumed since they were a young couple and at the time they didn't have a baby that they would take much better care of Jamie than Logan, who was living a bachelor's life at the time and he was working all the time. Naturally, I thought...
Mrs. Swift, you were saying?
Naturally, I thought that Logan couldn't give Jamie the best of care any more than he can right now.
Your Honor, this is an opinion, an unqualified opinion at that.
Yes, just answer the questions, Mrs. Swift.
Yes, sir.
Mrs. Swift, what did you do when you found out that the Scotts had given your baby to your husband without your permission?
I immediately tried to get him back. I love my baby. Jamie means everything in the world to me, so I went to see several lawyers in Monticello.
And did you succeed in getting advice?
No, nobody could tell me what to do, so I decided to do what Logan did. I decided to just go take him.
Did you do anything illegal?
No, absolutely not. I just...
Excuse me. Would you mind? Excuse me. Would you mind?
Mrs. Swift, I asked you if you did anything illegal.
What?
Thank you.
No, absolutely not. I swear. All I did was take my own baby home from the hospital. A mother has a right to do that, doesn't she?
Objection, Your Honor. It's Mr. Rutledge's job to ask the questions.
Yes, please refrain from making comments, Mrs. Swift.
Mrs. Swift, your little son was seriously ill, wasn't he?
Yes, he was. And he became ill while in the care of my husband, which tells you something about the quality of care he was receiving.
Objection, Your Honor. The witness's hatred is making her make unfounded opinions.
Yes, I'll sustain. Mr. Rutledge, would you mind if I addressed several questions to Mrs. Swift on this matter?
Certainly, Your Honor.
Thank you. Now, Mrs. Swift, you say that you simply took the baby home from the hospital. Does that mean you removed him without proper hospital release?
No, sir. He was recovered at the time. I simply took him home and gave him very good care like Mrs. Thomas said.
Your Honor, it should be pointed out to you at this time that Mrs. Swift was not the parent that had the baby admitted to the hospital.
Mr. Nelson, you will have an opportunity to cross-examine the witness.
Yes, sir.
Now, after you took the baby, Mrs. Swift, what did you do?
I found a nice place to live. A place where he could have a room of his own, and we were very happy.
Well, very well. I have no more questions, Mr. Rutledge.
Nor do I, Your Honor.
Very well. Mr. Nelson.
Mrs. Swift, you say your marriage broke up because of your husband's career, his work.
That was one of the reasons, yes.
Wasn't another reason infidelity? Your infidelity?
That's a lie. That's something he made up in order to take my baby away from me.
Mr. Nelson, unless you can show that the problem of the marriage directly affects the welfare of this child, you must not continue this line of questioning.
Your Honor, the character of the contesting parties here would... Yes, Your Honor. We'll save that for later. Well, Mrs. Swift, let's go back to the night that you went to April and Draper Scott's house. So, was your son Jamie there at the time?
Yes, he was.
Before you arrived?
April was taking care of him at the time.
I see. And when you arrived, you had already purchased your ticket to London. A single ticket to London?
Yes. I bought a single ticket to London because I did not want to take my baby with me. He was only 8 months old. I did not want him to make the trip.
Because you intended on living there.
I intended on visiting there.
Well, for a short time.
Yes, I just wanted to visit my mother.
And you had every intention of returning to Monticello.
Yes, my son was here.
Then why did you buy a one-way ticket to London?
What difference does that make? I didn't know when I was going to return.
You did buy a one-way ticket, didn't you?
Yes, I bought a one-way ticket. It was cheaper. I didn't have very much money. I assumed my mother would give me money to get home.
And the real reason was that you never really intended on coming home. You never intended on coming back to the United States, to Monticello, or to
That's
your son.
not true. I'm here. Doesn't that prove it?
You're here because you had a fight with your mother.
No.
Oh, do you get along well with your mother?
Yes.
I see.
Sometimes. It all depends.
The real truth is that you have had bitter disagreements with your mother for years. She was less than cordial when you arrived in London, and she was very happy to see you come back to Monticello.
That is a lie.
Yes, I'll sustain. Look, Mr. Nelson, I don't see the point of all this.
Well, Your Honor, the point is that this witness is twisting the facts. The truth is that she gave away her son to the Scots. She had no intention of ever coming back from London, and she only did because she had a fight with her mother. When she saw her husband out of spite...
Mr. Nelson, you seem to have launched into your summary a bit early, now haven't you?
Yes, sir. Sorry I have. Now, Mrs. Swift, did you give April and Draper Scott a letter giving them permission to raise your son?
I did give them a letter. Yes, that's true.
What did it say?
I gave them the right to take care of Jamie during my absence. I thought I should give them proper authorization. I am the wife of a lawyer.
Authorization to babysit? Isn't the truth that the letter said that they could take care of Jamie as they wish, raise him as they want, even adopt him if
That's
they want
a lie.
Yes, and then you found that letter and you destroyed it 3 weeks later, correct?
No.
You asked April Scott to give it to you, and then you deliberately let it fly out of your hands on the terrace of the
April Scott destroyed that letter, and I bet she did it deliberately so she could come here and lie.
May I remind you that April Scott has not testified yet.
No, but she will, and I know what she's going to do. She's going to come up on this stand and lie.
Now, Mrs. Swift, I have to caution you about these outbursts.
Your Honor, I am sorry, but I am very upset. They are trying to take away my baby from me just out of spite.
The same spite that motivated you when you saw your husband taking care of his own baby.
He had no right. He wasn't even the legal parent.
He was the boy's father, wasn't he?
Yes, he was.
You don't deny that, do you?
No, I don't.
Wasn't it only natural when you went off to London that you should ask him to take care of his own baby?
He wasn't capable. He didn't know how to take care of an infant. The only thing he knows about are indictments and courtroom procedures.
You hate your husband.
No, I love my baby.
Was it hate that motivated you? Was it jealousy that made you go into that hospital and steal that baby?
Objection, Your
I'll
Honor.
withdraw the question. When you took this baby, didn't you employ subterfuge to do it?
I don't know what you're talking about.
Why didn't you just petition the court? I'm sure that's what the lawyers who you consulted told you to do.
No one wanted to take the case. They were all afraid to tackle the district attorney.
I see, yes. The real reason is that you didn't want him to come to court. You were afraid of what might be revealed here.
I didn't want to make a fuss, and neither did he. He was a public figure.
You stole that baby. You lied and you cheated. You manipulated to get that baby.
Yes! Because I loved him, and I'll do it again. I'll go to the moon if I have to get my baby back. I don't care whether it's legal or not.
No more questions, Your Honor.
Your Honor, request permission of the court to redirect.
Yes, go ahead.
Mrs. Swift, you stated that your purpose in going to London was to visit your mother. Is that correct?
Yes.
Was it because you felt you needed some emotional support?
Yes. I felt very alone.
Because of the breakup of your marriage?
Yes. I needed to talk to my mother. She was the only one who could have understood at the time.
So then this trip obviously meant a great deal to you.
Yes, it did.
Just as your mother meant a great deal to you.
Your Honor, this Mother's Day speech is very touching, but irrelevant.
Your Honor, I think it's extremely important to understand exactly what happened during the period of Mrs. Swift's absence as well as her return.
I will overrule the objection.
Yes, sir.
Now, Mrs. Swift, what did your mother advise you when you saw her?
My mother asked me if I wanted to bring Jamie over to London, and perhaps I wanted to live there for a while.
But you didn't think that was a very good idea?
No, she had her own life to live, and I didn't want to interrupt anything, so I came back to Monticello, To get my baby and start a new life.
And so that's what you did.
Yes. As soon as I got my baby back.
Mrs. Swift, isn't it true that your mother visited you in your home only recently?
Yes. A couple of weeks ago. But she died in a tragic accident.
Yes. Yes, she died in a tragic automobile accident, didn't she?
Yes, and now I don't have anybody. The only person I have left is my son. All I have left is my baby.
Are you ready to call your first witness?
Yes, Your Honor. We'd like to call Mrs. April Scott.
Mrs. April Scott, please take the stand. Place your left hand on the Bible and raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth so help you God?
I do.
State your name.
April Kavanaugh Scott.
Be seated.
Thank you.
Mrs. Scott, you're acquainted with both parties of this suit, right?
Yes, I am.
In fact, you're close enough to them that when they needed someone to take care of their boy for a short time, you would volunteer.
That's correct.
On the night that Raven Swift went to England, was Jamie Swift in your house?
Yes, I had been taking care of him for a couple of days while they were away on a business trip.
What happened that night?
Well, Raven came over and said that she and her husband had broken up and that she was taking off for London.
Can you describe exactly for us what happened?
Yes, I can.
Raven.
Hi, Draper.
Where's April?
Raven, is that you?
Hi.
You didn't come here for Jamie, did you? I just put him up to bed. You said you wanted to stay.
You don't look so worried. I didn't come here to take my little angel away. I came here to leave him for good. Oh, boy, if you two could see your faces right now, I don't know whether you're happy or sad. You look so stunned.
Well, yeah, I am. I can't imagine what you mean.
I mean exactly what I said. Aren't you happy? Honey, you've always told me how much you love my little boy. What's the matter? You just love him if he's only here a couple of hours?
Now, take it easy, Raven. You're 3 feet off the ground. You've been drinking or what?
Oh, I need a drink. I'm going on a plane and they petrify me. Well, say something. Do you want to take him or don't you? Because if you don't, I'll have to find somebody else. Now, I'm sure Geraldine Saxon would give me her millions if I would bundle up the little kid and give him to her, but I wouldn't do that for all the tea in China. Or I should say London, that's more appropriate.
Come on, Raven, now don't make jokes about this. It isn't funny.
I'm not making a joke. As a matter of fact, I don't have much of a sense of humor these days. That's one thing I hope I get back when I leave this horrid place.
Now, where are you flying?
You're not listening, Draper. I'm going to London. I've already got a ticket. I had a hard time, but there was a cancellation on the midnight flight, so I shall be flying across the Atlantic at midnight. Isn't that romantic?
Why are you doing this?
Oh, I think you know. I just have to get away from this dull, boring, ridiculous domestic life. I hate it. I didn't realize how much I hated it until Logan started this damn quarrel.
So it was Logan who started, huh?
Come on, Draper. I'm not going to clue you in on all the juicy details, even though I'd like to. No, I have to leave, and I haven't even packed yet, and it took me 2 days to pack on this trip upstate.
And you never did take the trip upstate, did you? I mean, you were sick.
Yes, well, I'm a lot better now. As a matter of fact, I've never felt better in my life because I know exactly what it is I want to do now. And the first thing I'm going to do is give Jamie to a brand new mommy. You.
Oh, my God. Raven, you're serious.
Uh-huh. And I'll show you just how serious I am. I have it all written out. Now, this may not be the most perfect legal document in the world, Draper, so you might want to look it over and improve it a little bit, but essentially, it gives you and April all rights to Jamie's care, feeding, and upbringing. Anything you want to do with him is just fine with me.
Mrs. Scott, do you have the letter that Raven Swift gave you?
No, it's gone. Because Raven Swift got rid of it. Yes, Mrs. Swift asked me for that letter. She was very anxious to get her hands on it.
Because she knew it would be condemning evidence in a custody trial.
Objection, Your Honor. Calling for a conclusion.
You're sustained.
The reason you didn't give the letter back to Mrs. Swift was because you knew she was intent on destroying it.
Yes, and because Mr. Swift had also asked me for the letter, and, well, I felt he had more right to it.
Because, Your Honor, the letter revealed that Raven Swift literally and actually gave away her own son.
Your Honor, this is testimony about evidence nobody's even seen.
Mrs. Scott, you say that Mrs. Swift literally destroyed this letter before your eyes?
Yes, Your Honor. She'd let it fly right off my terrace, and I live on the 32nd floor. The letter was never found.
The letter's gone. We only have her word against Mrs. Swift's admittedly questionable testimony as to what it said. No more questions.
Well, Mr. Rutledge.
Remember what I said.
I really don't think
Just do what I said.
Now, Mrs. Scott, you say that you gave this letter to Logan Swift despite the fact that his wife asked you for it first?
Yes, that was my decision.
Why did you favor one parent over the other?
Because I believed that Logan Swift would make a better parent for his little boy, and because I also felt that the contents of the letter should be revealed.
Are you absolutely sure about the contents of this letter? Are you sure it wasn't just permission for you to keep Jamie Swift for only a brief period of time?
No, the letter gave us the right to raise that little boy as our very own son.
Mrs. Scott, how well do you know Logan Swift?
We're very good friends. He is my husband's best friend.
You say was because until quite recently you thought your husband was dead, didn't you?
Yes, I did.
In fact, for the last 6 months you've been living the life of a widow.
Objection, Your Honor. All this questioning is irrelevant.
I promise connection, Your Honor.
Very well. You may proceed.
Mrs. Scott, isn't it true that during the 6 months that you believed your husband dead and buried, that you and Logan Swift drew closer together? That you became more than just friends? That, in fact, you actually fell in love? That you were lovers?
Seems as though a harmony is hard to find. Always on my mind. And frustrated days pass without sight. The edge of night